everybody, and welcome back to BMAD Spotlight. I'm Mike Connell, founder of Boston Making a Difference. In today's episode, we have with us a guest from Iselin, New Jersey, who's it's a woman who's fighting a battle against a disease that affects a lot of us today. It's called Alzheimer's, and her name is Betsy Wurzel, and she's going to tell us a story about her husband's travel through 10 years of dealing with Alzheimer's disease. Betsy, thank you for being here with us today, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor and a privilege, really. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you coming out. You know, Alzheimer's is something that, you know, is near and dear to me too, along with a few other things that I look to get help with, like ALS and Parkinson's. They're all kind of in the same family of neurodegenerative diseases. So, you know, when you reached out to get on the show with me, I thought, you know, this is a great time for it because there's a lot of stuff in the news about Alzheimer's disease, and yet we still know so little about it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're from, and you know what happened in your life in dealing with Alzheimer's.
Sure. I am from Iselin, New Jersey. My name is, as you said, Betsy Wurzel. I'm a host on Chatting with Betsy with Passion World Talk Radio, which is in other outlets like Apple, Google, iHeart. I am also a co-founder. Well, I'm a kind of co-founder, but I did create it. But my friend Lori helped me start it. A group on Facebook called #Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement, because either Alzheimer's is going to kick my butt or I was going to kick Alzheimer's butt. And I'm a fighter, Mike, so I chose to come out fighting. And my husband, his name is Matthew Sloan. He died January 1st. This year after a 10-year battle with early onset Alzheimer's. He was 56 at diagnosis. I also am working at a preschool, I forgot to say that. And the battle, Mike, is from the beginning to get a diagnosis to, unfortunately, even his end of life was a battle for the medical community to believe caregivers. And I started my group because nobody should walk this journey alone, as I did for so many years before I got on Facebook to join groups. It's caregivers who are reaching out and helping other caregivers. You go to a doctor, they don't tell you anything. Now they're starting to guide a caregiver to resources. But to get that diagnosis is really difficult because they don't believe the caregiver or the patient, as in the case of my husband.
So tell us a little bit about the time, you know, that you had to deal with your husband for 10 years. Tell us a little bit about the progression and you know, and what you had to go through and what he had to go through in dealing with this horrible disease.
Sure. When Matt worked for a very great company. They saw something was not right with him. I was called in on his disability meeting, and I was told Matt was forgetting things at work, something wasn't right. The company doctors suspected dementia without even seeing any of his test results, but the local neurologist here said, Matt is too young. Matt is too young. The neuropsychologist accused Matt of being non-compliant and said he couldn't possibly be that bad. This happens over and over again, Mike, that I've heard this from so many people. Not being believed. This is what infuriated me. And I actually became an advocate because I was mad, not because I'm afraid. So I started to raise awareness and show my husband's picture. This is what the face of Alzheimer's looks like. It's not a normal part of aging. It is not an old person's disease. And Matt was misdiagnosed, as most are, with depression. I mean, who wouldn't be depressed? You can't drive. You can't function at a job. You lose your independence. I would be depressed. Wouldn't you be? I mean, I would be. So that didn't work. Matt taught Sunday school for over 25 years. He said to me, what time is it? I said, Matt, are you serious? Are you joking? Because he was a jokester. I said, no, I'm serious. I don't know what time it is. What time is Sunday school? I said, this is no longer depression. I went back to the neurologist and I said, listen, this is not depression. He can't even tell time. Matt's mom had Alzheimer's and his mom's family. Matt was the first to get it young. I'm grateful, Mike, that Matt progressed slow, but midway, I'm going to say 5, 6 years ago, he had trouble getting dressed. And that was an adjustment. And as caregivers, we constantly have to adjust and adapt. If you don't adjust and adapt, you can have more stress on yourself. This is where education comes in, and I'm very pro education and being an advocate for your loved one and for yourself. It was hard to see Matt not being able to get undressed and dressed. And it was his last 2 years of life where he really took a turn, especially in 2019. He started to lose weight. He started to hallucinate. And I took him to the emergency room to rule out any infection. Didn't have any infection. He was at the last stage. I had to feed Matt by that time, cut his food. I want to mention I had help. My son Josh, our son Josh, helped. If it wasn't for our son, I would not have been able to work. Josh, God bless him, he has special needs himself, but he was a great caregiver to his dad. And I waited to put Matt on hospice in November, right, actually the day after Thanksgiving. Everyone's hospice experience is different. Mine was the nightmare from hell. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, I hate that you have to say that, but
was the home hospice. The hospital was better. So even at the end of life, Mike, I had to fight for Matt. I wasn't believed that he was at the end of life. I told the hospice nurse to educate herself. Not everybody fits the textbook picture. Everyone is different. Matt had terminal agitation. They didn't recognize it. They told me, oh, well, it could be the side effect of him being off of his medication. They didn't believe me that he was agitated, that the medicine wasn't working. The hospice social worker came to my house and tried to, in my opinion, intimidate me, questioning how I'm giving medicine. And I said, do not talk to me like I'm stupid. I used to work as a licensed practical nurse. I know how to give medication. Still was not believed. I said, Matt is complaining of a headache. He said, as clear as day, I have a headache. She said, it can't be that he has a headache. It's probably the Seroquel causing noises in the head. Well, I listened to them. I still gave the medication. I said, this is insane. You're giving more of the same. It's not helping. Oh, and by the way, Mike, I was told I called hospice too much. The social worker had the nerve to say, no one calls hospice as much as you. Well, I'm an advocate. I will call as much as I want. They thought they were dealing with a meek, quiet housewife while I'm a 5-foot spitfire.
no, but it's your right, to fight for what you believe in. It was your husband, so you had that right.
Yes, and Christmas, the weekend before Christmas, that Friday, Matt fell. I called up hospice. They wouldn't come out. They would not come out. They said, so I'll come out the next day. Nobody came out. I called. And I said I was very unhappy, and I want to get Matt out of this hospice. Oh no, don't do that, Mrs. Sloan. My married name is Sloan. Give this medication, give the Valium, don't give the Seroquel. Well, Matt talked that whole night long, fell out of bed that Sunday morning. I called up. I said, is someone going to come out? Matt hallucinated all night. Medicine didn't work. Someone going to come out and assess him? I don't know. Well, I blew a gas. What do you mean you don't know? And I said, okay, you don't know? Well, I'm going to call you up every minute until you do something. I'm going to call your regional director. I'm calling Medicare, and I'm putting a complaint because I'm think I'm having a heart attack. I had chest pain from the stress and lack of sleep.
God
and
bless.
I said, I shouldn't have, hospice is supposed to help. Now, not all hospices are equal. I want to make sure everyone knows that. So she said, don't do that, Mrs. Sloan. She got a nurse manager. Matt was admitted to hospice unit in the hospital that Sunday before Christmas. And the social worker had, said to me, yes, Betsy, you pushed hard to get Med in here. The thing is, I shouldn't have had to push hard. I should have been believed. And I told the other social worker at the hospital, caregivers are not going to take this crap anymore. We want to be listened to. We know our loved ones. You need to listen to us. And Mike, the thing that really ticked me off, well, there's many things, is that the hospice nurse in the hospital said to me, oh, Betsy, now we see what you're talking about. They had to have someone sit in with Matt so he wouldn't get out of bed. And then he had to get medicated. I knew he wasn't coming home from that hospital, and they kept telling me he'll be discharged. That's another thing. The social worker called me on Christmas Eve day and said that Matt was going to be discharged. I said, oh, I don't think so. I said, he's not even calmed down on IV meds. She said, oh, don't worry, Betsy. We'll take him off of the IV meds. We'll monitor him and we'll discharge him. I said, oh, no. I said, you let me know when he's off of the IV meds and I will monitor him myself. And if I don't think he should be discharged, I refuse his discharge. I know his rights. I know mine. It's not safe for him to come home. Oh, Mrs. Sloan, the doctor has to sign, excuse me, has to sign on that. I said, I don't care what the doctor has to do. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. I will smack a complaint against this hospice with Medicare so fast. Don't think I won't do it. And I went into the director of hospice because I already talked to her about my experience. And I said, Carmela, if Matt should go home, which I don't think he will, and so help me if Arwen doesn't come out, my next call is to the CEO of this hospital. You do not want to deal with me. I'm not the one to be dealing with it. And she gave me her card. She goes, you call me 24/7. Before that, Mike, when Matt was admitted, I had called the director of hospice and placed my complaint. And she told me to come in. She wanted to meet me. And I told her the treatment was unacceptable. And she said, no follow-up. She said, well, apparently the ball was dropped and I'm very sorry this usually doesn't happen. I said, the ball was dropped. My husband's not a ball. Would you accept that? Would anybody on this floor accept that as a nurse? I don't think so. Why should I accept it? Because I'm not going to accept it. I said, you met the wrong one if you think that I think this is acceptable. I eventually, after Matt died, placed a complaint with Levanta, Medicare's Quality and Control. It's under investigation.
God bless you. What a heartbreaking story. That really is. I mean, I understand that there's a lot of unknown. People don't, really know what Alzheimer's is, what's causing it, how to deal with it. And, you as a wife and your son, I mean, just heartbreaking to have to go through all that red tape BS. Never mind what was happening to your husband,
Yes. And, Mike, the doctors themselves do not know how this disease goes. It's a mystery to them. And when Matt was trying to get Matt diagnosed, his first MRI showed global shrinkage. His EEG was abnormal. And they would not, their thing was he's too young. They didn't know 10 years ago what they know now. I didn't know 10 years ago what I know now. And I want to say right here, thank God for people like Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Passion World Talk Radio, Jeannie White, station manager, who lets people talk, gives people the opportunity, and you also, Mike. This is so important for people to hear caregiver stories. That's very important.
Yes, it is.
I wish I heard it.
My ex-wife's brother, Fred, he's got early onset Alzheimer's, and his wife Rihanna, she went through a lot of the same things you did. They just didn't know what was going on. He was forgetting things, making a mess of finances and things like that, until they finally figured it out, that it was Alzheimer's. And it truly is a really sad story. He's young, he's still in his early 50s, and they put him into an institution because he just became just too difficult to take care of at home, and it's just very sad. I know there's a lot of research being done out there, but there needs to be some education especially for caregivers on how to recognize this and how to deal with it right from the get-go.
Yes, I was noticing things in the beginning. Now that I look back, I didn't think anything of it. Matt forgetting how to go somewhere that, we haven't been there in a long time. I could understand that. But it's kind of funny in a way. He was leaving his dresser drawers open, leaving water running in the sink, walking away. Matt grew up in this town. He lived in this town his whole life. They added a left-hand lane to a major road. That got him confused. He would go all the way around to avoid it. I'm like, Matt, what is your problem? You just stay straight. Well, now I know what his problem was. And I noticed he was getting more forgetful. Matt was always scatterbrained. And I had an intuition he would get it early, but I myself didn't know you could get everything. And he would forget more and more. So I wanted to go to a neurologist. He wouldn't go. And then his company told him he had to go. And then he relented and he went. But the attitude, Mike, of doctors is, well, there's nothing we can do anyway. And that was the attitude of his primary doctor in the beginning. Well, Betsy, there's nothing I could have done anyway. So at the end of the day, it doesn't make a difference. And Mike, it's the same attitude. I have a relative who I think has dementia, and the neurologist said to my mom, there's no cure anyway. And this is the stinky attitude. There's medications that can control symptoms. There are clinical trials that are going on. Why can't doctors do that? Why can't they guide to that direction? There wasn't many clinical trials when Matt was diagnosed, and he didn't want to go anyway. But at least offer it. At least the doctors, this is what I think, Mike. When someone is diagnosed, I think the caregiver to be should take a class on caregiving, decide that that's what you want to do, and educate yourself about the diagnosis. Get your power of attorney, medical and financial, in order immediately, if not sooner, because you're going to need it.
Let me tell you a bit about something that I've learned. I'll share it with you and with the audience. I have been a partner in a company now for a couple of years. The company is called Immunotech, and they've been around, for 40 plus years, more than 20 plus years of research, and then now more than 23 years of releasing a product. They have a flagship product that's called Immunocal, and they've been doing some clinical testing with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and ALS patients, because they see one of the root symptoms with these is severe inflammation, oxidative stress on the brain. And this product, Immunocal, is a precursor for glutathione. And many tests have shown that there's a severe shortage of glutathione in the brain in all the people with these challenges. So by raising glutathione, it can help alleviate some of the symptoms. I'm not saying it's any kind of cure or anything, but it certainly helps slow down the progress of it, because it's creating this vital cell in your immune system called glutathione. And they're seeing some really promising results with tests on this. So it might be something to share with people who are currently battling this, that here's something to try to see if it helps. It's really worth doing that.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's a fantastic product, and it's an all-natural product. So the doctors don't want to deal with it because it's not a pharmaceutical, but it's in their physician desk reference. They can prescribe it, but they don't make any money off it, so they're not. I shouldn't say that, but it's the truth. If they're not making money on it, they're not going to prescribe it. So.
That's funny you said that because I just did an interview with somebody about pharmaceuticals and drug advocacy. And, I don't know if it still is true, but back in the 80s and 90s, the pharmaceutical companies were in cahoots with doctors and they received kickbacks and vacations. So,
Well, now it's not even
yeah.
kickbacks, it's just part of the protocol. Hospitals are signed on with certain pharmaceuticals. Every time they prescribe a drug, they get paid. And so, if you go outside that protocol, it's really frowned upon. So doctors, especially if they're in these partner groups, they go by what the protocol is. They prescribe only what's, there in the protocol. So, and it's only if it's outside and it's the only thing for a patient, they'll take a look at it. But this is an all natural product, which, they'll scoff at, but it's got, 40 plus years of research, over 70 clinical studies, and it's proven to help in many of these situations. And now, with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and ALS, where it is neurodegenerative, it's very much stress, oxidative stress and inflammation related, and glutathione is the key in reducing that inflammation. So how can people help, Betsy? What can people do? Tell us about your face group and how they can, get involved and help with this situation.
Sure. The name of my Facebook group is called hashtag Kick Alzheimer's S Movement on Facebook. And that group is for all dementias, caregivers. You don't even have to be a caregiver. I have people there who just want to educate themselves and support people who are going through this. I would love for anyone to check it out and join. It is to educate, inspire, and teach you to be an advocate. I'm very strong on education. Right now, it's a small group, a little over 400. I started it February of 2019. I was going to wait until after Matt died, but a life coach told me, Betsy, this is your passion. You need to start it now. And so Lorraine Lepore, her sister was dying of dementia, and she wanted to help me start it. So we started it, and I'm glad that I didn't wait because, Mike, the need for education and support and to learn to be an advocate is really very, very important. I can't stress enough. If you see an injustice done to your loved one, you see a side effect, you don't think something is right, you need to call up your medical team. You need to question. Be polite, be firm, but you have to know what you're talking about. And this is where education comes in. And everyone is welcome in my group. I don't discriminate. And I have a quote, Mike. Alzheimer's or other dementias is an equal opportunity destroyer. Doesn't care if you're gay, straight, white, black, political party, intelligence, doesn't matter. And people think, oh, I'm in my ivory tower. It doesn't run in my family. It doesn't have to run in your family. Unfortunately, with Matt's family, it does run in his family. And now my son is at high risk for getting Alzheimer's.
Well, get him on Immunical. I really mean that. It will help him. I promise you that. So any last words of encouragement you want to give anybody, or contact information if they want to reach out to you?
Sure. My Facebook page, my own personal page is Betsy, Betsy Wurzel, Wurzel. You can contact me there. And my shows of Chatting with Betsy, which I talk to caregivers and people who were caregivers and health-related issues, is on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple, any of those social podcasting networks. And my email is Sloan, Sloan, Betsy31 at gmail.com.
Thank
So if
you so
anybody wants
much.
to be a guest. Thank you, Mike. I'm very happy to be on your show. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. And thank you, Sheila Wilson, because she connected us.
Right. Sheila's been great in pointing people to me, and they've been fabulous. The nurses up here going through the fight with the pandemic and, you know, not having proper equipment to protect them, all those kind of things. So she does great work, Sheila Wilson. And I have to applaud you for the great work you're doing in helping people. You are impacting people's lives that are dealing with a very sad and difficult situation. So I thank you, and I'm sure many out there do thank you and appreciate you for what you're doing. And that'll be it for another edition of BMAD Spotlight, and look forward to the next one. Thank you, Betsy.
Thank you, Mike. Bye-bye.